Time keeps on moving. It doesn't stop. It doesn't care. And the Doctor and Clara keep traveling. And things catch up with them. Starting with Missy, who reveals quite spectacularly that she's still alive. She has temporarily stopped all of the airplanes on Earth, and she sends a message to UNIT asking for Clara to contact her. Not to mention about 8 snipers. So, when Missy finally gets the audience with Clara, she proceeds to casually vaporize 2 unit agents, restart the planes, which are perfectly alright, and insists that the Doctor is in trouble because she got his last will and testament. Basically a device called a confession dial. And Missy wants Clara's help in, at the very least, staving off the Doctor's death for now. So, after a little puzzling things out, figuring out where and when the Doctor might be, Missy abducts Clara via vortex manipulator, and they head into the past, medieval times, where the Doctor is doing this. Yep, you might be cool, but you'll never be the 12th Doctor on a tank rocking an electric guitar cool. Anywho, the Doctor, Clara, and Missy start having a bit of a chat when a creature shows up. A being by the name of Colony Sarf, who, as it turns out, is a snake that can coil itself into what looks like a human, because it's got eyes and a face, or eyes, a nose, and a mouth on parts of its coils, so it can communicate. But really, it's a big snake. Basically, Nagini's big brother. And it's got a lot of little snakes with it. It searched high and low, even visiting the Shadow Proclamation, looking for the Doctor, because he has a message from Davros, who is still alive after all this time. The Sisters of Karn were the first to hear the message, but Sarf really needs to deliver the message to the Doctor himself. The message is, he knows, he remembers, and he's dying. So he wants to talk to the Doctor one last time. See, it turns out, when Davros was just a kid, he bumbled onto a battlefield with troops, some armed with longbows, and biplanes firing lasers and hand mines. Basically robotic hands with eyeballs in the palms that grab you and pull you under. And poor baby Davros found himself in a field of hand mines. But the Doctor comes to him and throws him his sonic screwdriver to use it as a walkie-talkie to try to puzzle a way out of things. Keep a line of communication open. But when Davros reveals his name, the doctor leaves. And then the doctor reappears behind Davros, wielding some sort of early prototype of a Dalek gunstick, which the doctor uses seemingly on Davros. But Davros is still alive. He's in a medical center, cared for by Sarf. And when Davros tells Sarf to get the doctor, he's still got the sonic screwdriver. It's non-functional. Time has weathered it, but yeah, he's still got it. And he wants to know why the doctor said he could save him, then chose not to. So, the doctor allows himself to be taken aboard Sarf's ship, with Missy and Clara coming too, despite the doctor's protests. And one of the warriors from earlier, he's revealed to be a Dalek puppet who has more Daleks steal the Tardis. Yep, they are royally hosed. They end up aboard what looks like a space station, and Davros and the doctor talk a while. Basically reminiscing over the battle days, their various encounters. And one of the televised memories was of the Fourth Doctor asking, what would you do if you found a kid who would grow up to be a despot? What would you do to that kid to potentially save future lives? The old "would you kill baby Hitler" conundrum. And yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher, because the kid hasn't done anything yet. The man he will become doesn't exist yet. Does killing the kid change history, or does maybe showing the kid some mercy change history? Meanwhile, Clara and Missy, who's singing to herself, because I think she's gone even more crazy than Harold Saxon. They talk, Clara insisting that Missy cannot possibly be the doctor's friend, but Missy insists that despite what they've gone through, yeah, she's still his friend. And she ultimately decides to open the door into space to kill them both. Only they don't die. They walk out into what looks like space, and they're fine. They're fine. But then it's revealed that they're on a cloaked planet. But now that they're on the planet, the cloak dissipates, and it's revealed they're on Skaro, the homeworld of the Daleks, in the middle of the Dalek city. Now, Skaro was shown previously after the Hand of Omega blew it up, but apparently the Doctor was still flabbergasted that they rebuilt Skaro. Yep, the Daleks are here too. Turns out the destruction of the Dalek Parliament wasn't the end of the Daleks. Nor was Rusty choosing to fight the Daleks, the end of them. Davros is actually being powered by the Daleks. He connected them to him, so his death would mean their death. Possibly. Meanwhile, Clara and Missy end up getting surrounded by Daleks, and the Doctor is helpless to watch, with Davros doing nothing to stop his children, despite the Doctor's literally begging for mercy. Missy and Clara get vaporized, and that turns on the Doctor's berserk button, because he ends up ripping what's left of Davros out of his chair, commandeering it, and taking control of the seemingly broken, although the Doctor fixes it, Dalek rifle. And while he's doing that, reeling from the loss of Clara, Missy, and the apparent destruction of the TARDIS, because they did that too. Seems Davros figured out that the Doctor might try something like this, so he put parts of Colony Sarf into the chair, at which point the Doctor is recaptured and Davros is restored to his chair. And it's not looking good for what's left of Team TARDIS. Luckily, turns out Clara and Missy are safe, because according to Missy, the Doctor was once surrounded by invisible robots, and all he had was a teleport watch and his sonic screwdriver. And the watch used the same energy as the robots. So, in the milliseconds he had before the energy beams of the robots hit him, he was able to program the watch and power it up using the energy that was being presented to him. And that's how he survived seemingly insurmountable odds. And that's actually how Missy and Clara survived this time. And why the Cyber Brigadier's energy beam didn't kill Missy that one time. Unfortunately, this time the vortex manipulators have been burned out. They're useless now. So that was a one-time thing. Next time, they're dead meat. So, after Missy finds and sharpens a stick and casually threatens Clara again, they try to figure out how to get back to the city. And they find a sewer, which turns out the Dalek word for sewer is the same as graveyard. Turns out even ancient Daleks who've rotted away to sludge are still alive and suffering. And they're dumped in the underground and forgotten. But Missy has a plan, and Clara is going to hate it. First, Missy drops Clara down a hole. to figure out how deep the hole is. Ouch. Then she ties her up and uses her as bait, luring in a Dalek and then puncturing its armor with a special material found on one of her brooches to allow the sewer Daleks to invade and destroy the intact Dalek within. And after extracting what's left, she puts Clara inside the Dalek chassis. But unlike Ian, who had to figure out how to move the Dalek with primitive levers and pedals and such, Clara gets a neural interface. 2 wires that are stuck in her head, which continually repair the damage that they're causing. And she merely has to think of a direction, and when she speaks, the Dalek voice synthesizer does the work for her. And we find something out. She tries to say her name, but it comes out as Dalek. And when Missy asks her to say, "I love you," and she does, the synthesizer says, "Exterminate." And then when Clara starts to panic, the Dalek gunstick starts firing, which Missy dances around like a witch. Having already demonstrated she likes the scary Mary Poppins theme in the previous Jaunt with the Cybermen. Basically, she's scary Poppins. And she reveals that while Cybermen suppress emotions, Daleks channel it through their weapons. Shouting "Exterminate" reloads the weapon. So that's why any good emotion is suppressed by the Dalek machinery. They need the negative ones to function. Meanwhile, while Missy decides to try to strike up a deal with the Daleks, using Clara as leverage, the Doctor, who's been knocked out and put in Scarrow's only remaining chair, strikes up a conversation with Davros, who starts to get emotional. He seems to start regretting what he's done. Regretting that he and the Doctor were never on the same side. And laments that he can't see the sun one last time with his own eyes. Yeah, apparently he repaired his eyes because they open. And he and the Doctor seemingly start to reconcile. To the point where the Doctor takes pity on him and gets him facing the window that's about to show the sunrise and plugs in the wires from Davros' life support system. So he's got a little bit of time left because he really is dying. And even decides to give up a tiny bit of regeneration energy by grabbing one of the power cables after shaking some energy into his hand. Unfortunately, that was Davros' plan. He didn't want to see the sun. Never wanted to. He just wanted to trick the Doctor into giving up some regeneration energy, which starts getting funneled into both Davros and all the Daleks on Skaro, including a red and gold Supreme, which is my favorite model. Apart from the ones you see here, the classic powder blue and silver ones. Anywho, Davros starts cackling that he and his children are renewed. The Doctor is finished, and even mentions a Time Lord legend. 2 warrior races thrust together to create a hybrid that will outlast all of them. But the Doctor had Davros' number from the start. He knew what was going on. See, the energy didn't just go into the fresh Daleks in the city. The energy went into the Daleks in the sewer. And so, just a few seconds after things start getting after the Doctor starts getting drained, the city foundations start to crack. The sewers get renewed energy and start bubbling up through the floor. And the Daleks are defeated by their own kind. The forgotten, the fallen. The dead rise and consume the living like every zombie apocalypse film there is. So, Missy charges in with the Dalek weapon, blasts the cables that are draining the Doctor, pokes Davros in his forehead eyeball thing, and the 2 of them leave. But before they get out of the city, they meet a Dalek who keeps screaming that it is indeed a Dalek. Turns out that's Clara. Missy almost tricks the Doctor into killing Clara by making her believe that the Dalek he sees before him killed Clara. Luckily, somehow, someway, Clara manages to get the Dalek to say the word mercy. It shows mercy. And despite the fact that River got a Dalek to say the word mercy a few times, he's flabbergasted that this Dalek could say the word at all. So he manages to get Clara to open up the Dalek's chassis, and after ordering Missy to leave, telling her to run, he successfully unplugs Clara and they book it out of the city. Meanwhile, Missy gets surrounded by more Daleks. She states that she has a wonderful idea, flirts with the Daleks a little, and that's the last we see of her. Does she die? Who knows? Meanwhile, after the Doctor reveals wearable technology in the form of sonic sunglasses, he also proceeds to reveal that the Tardis wasn't actually destroyed. It just looked destroyed. So with the sonic specs, he rematerializes the ship, they teleport out, and the Doctor wonders how that Dalek chassis could say the word mercy. And then it hits him. So he goes back, points the weapon at baby Davros, and exterminates all the hand mines, showing the creator of the Daleks a modicum of mercy, and closing the causality loop. This part of the season is big on causality loops. And so the day is saved, and the Doctor and Clara go off on their next adventure. They end up underwater, about 100 years in Earth's future, at a mining facility in a flooded town near Scotland. It seems that this crew discovered an alien spaceship with strange writing on the inside of the hull. And when the leader of the operation looks at the writing, shortly after, he's cooked alive by the ship's engines. And both he and an alien from the universe's most conquered planet appear as eyeless ghosts, mumbling something. And these ghosts trick the rest of the crew, well, most of the rest of the crew, with the exception of a deaf woman's interpreter, into seeing the message written on the inside of the ship. At which point, the ghosts start stalking the people. But it's strange. They can move through objects, but can only interact with certain metal objects, which they use as weapons. And also, they only appear when the facility is in night mode. It causes the lights to change, and so during day mode, they're not active. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Clara both see the message and begin getting stalked by the ghosts, only to run across the crew. The deaf woman, her interpreter, a nerd guy, very headstrong woman, and I think that's it. At first, the Doctor is overjoyed at the thought of meeting actual ghosts. But then Clara reminds him that these people are terrified and they've lost people they care about. So the fact that this Doctor seems to be the most autistic starts rearing its ugly head. Because while he's fascinated by what's going on, he neglects social niceties. But thankfully Clara is there with flashcards to help. So, the two groups work together to figure out what's going on. It's revealed that the ghosts can't penetrate a Faraday cage that's built into the facility. And the ghosts are also mumbling something. Turns out it's several words. And the words point to a church in the ruins of the flooded town. And so they collect what looks to be a casket from the alien spaceship, which also appears to be missing some sort of energy cell. Unfortunately, the ghosts are smart. They start using the facility against them, and Clara and the doctor get separated. Clara with the deaf lady and her interpreter, who the deaf lady seems very protective of for some reason, like almost motherly. And the doctor with the nerd guy and the impetuous young woman. And luckily, the doctor and his temporary companions are able to get to the Tardis, and the doctor is able to go back to before the town was flooded, when a dam burst. See, this whole area used to be a training facility for the Cold War. Scottish troops would train in what looked like a Russian village, but then the place flooded, so there you go. So, temporary Team Tardis goes off to before the town was flooded, only for Clara to notice another ghost showing up. And it's the doctor. And so the narrative shifts. The town is perfectly alright, abandoned at the time, and we find the spaceship, which is actually a hearse, and we find out that the alien ghost is actually a mortician who's come to vary a creature known as the Fisher King. His race conquered the mortician's planet until some other people liberated them. Luckily, the mortician's people are so annoying that their liberators ended up becoming their conquerors, which they love. Basically, they like kowtowing to the baddest of the bad. I'm surprised they haven't tried to swear loyalty to the Daleks or something, or the Sontarans. Actually, I think I did see that the Sontarans conquered them briefly on their Doctor Who wiki page. Anyway, it seems that the Fisher King's last wish was to be buried on a primitive backwater world, namely Earth. Only it's revealed that he ain't so dead. He kills the mortician after said mortician sees the message that the Fisher King wrote on the wall, which, as it turns out, are coordinates. And when you see the coordinates, they're locked into your brain. And then when you die, your consciousness becomes a quote-unquote ghost, which begins transmitting the coordinates of Earth. See, the Fisher King knows what's going on, and even knows the Doctor is a Time Lord. And his plan is to use those people to get his people to Earth to siphon off all the water and put humanity in chains. So, it's up to the Doctor to stop him. Unfortunately, the headstrong woman who refuses to stay in the TARDIS winds up getting killed. And the nerd guy, he wonders aloud why she insisted on coming with him. And with her dying breath, she admits it's to keep him safe. The implication being that she was in love with him, but he never made a move, even though she desperately wanted him to. So, the Doctor and the nerd guy book it for the Tardis, and try to head home to prevent this future from happening. Only the TARDIS won't let them go. It only takes them back half an hour. And the Doctor sadly has to convince the nerd guy to not save the mortician or the woman who apparently loves him, because you can't mess with history. The incident with Rose and her dad was proof enough. But after a brief communication with Clara, it's revealed that the Doctor isn't in ghost form, repeating the same message as its ethereal comrades. It's a list of people who are going to die, and Clara's on that list. So the Doctor has to figure out a way to not get in history's way, and also stop the Fisher King. He puts the nerd guy back in the TARDIS, which flies off automatically, and confronts the Fisher King briefly. Only he's just buying time. Remember, one of the energy cells from the alien spaceship was missing? Turns out the Doctor had put it next to the dam and set it to explode. Also, the casket, the Doctor gets inside it and spends the next 150 years asleep. So the town gets flooded, the Fisher King is swept away, the Doctor wakes up inside the underwater facility, and he tricks the ghosts who almost kill Clara, the deaf lady, and her interpreter into the Faraday cage and locks them up. Oh, and before then, the lady briefly uses her ability to sense vibrations through her hands to figure out that she's literally about to be axed, and survives, along with her interpreter. So, the Doctor uses his sonic sunglasses to wipe the memory of the message from everyone, and informs them that UNIT will deal with the ghost transmitter things and make sure the spacecraft is destroyed, or at the very least buried. But there have been losses. The head of, well, the financial head of the operation got killed before Team TARDIS got separated, and the headstrong woman, she's not coming back. And so the nerd, the nerd who has to go on, insists the interpreter tell the deaf woman that he loves her. So they get together, and throughout all this, the Doctor mentions the bootstrap paradox. Google it. Basically, say there's a time traveler and he wants to meet Beethoven, so he goes back to try and meet Beethoven. Only Beethoven's not there. His family hasn't even heard of him. Luckily, the guy brought all his Beethoven sheet music for autographs. So he publishes the music himself. He becomes Beethoven. Only, who first gave him the sheet music? Where did he get it from? And where did the Doctor get the idea for this causality loop in the first place? Mind blown. Anyway, our next adventure starts out rather abruptly, with the Doctor running to save some aliens from another group of aliens. And Clara, stuck in space, with something in her suit. Luckily, the Doctor pulls off a major miracle, saves the aliens, stops the bad aliens, and materializes the Tardis around Clara just in time to save her from having her brain sucked out through her mouth and asphyxiation in space. So, they decide to stop on Earth and take a breather, and for the Doctor to wipe off his shoe because he squished the thing that nearly killed Clara. Only for them to be jumped by Norsemen who go raiding. Yes, Vikings. And yes, some of them are wearing horned helmets, but most of them are properly dressed. And they insist that the Doctor and Clara come with them, and they even break the Doctor's sonic specs. And so we see, after a long boat ride away from the TARDIS, so we see a quaint little Viking-era village. And we meet Ashildr, the daughter of one of the non-warrior Norsemen. She's a bit of a tomboy, a very imaginative storyteller, and she's got doubts because she thinks she might be bad luck. But she's not bad luck, she's rather cute. Of course she's cute. She's played by Maisie Williams. Anywho, the Doctor, this is where my tongue stops working, tries to BS the Vikings into thinking he's Odin with a yo-yo. But then a more Odin-looking face appears in the sky and invites all the warriors to Valhalla for a feast. And then a bunch of big-looking aliens in boxy-looking armor come down and teleport the warriors away. And one of them notices Clara trying to get Ashildr to use the half-broken sonic specs to release her manacles. They sense the technology and teleport the two of them up to the ship. There they witness a horrifying act. The warriors are vaporized, and Clara and Ashildr are interrogated. The leader of this group, who we learn is the Maiar, they want to know about the Time Lord technology that Clara brought on board. And whether or not they have another enemy to face. And we also find out that the warriors were processed into an adrenaline testosterone solution. Yep, the Maiar are also steroid freaks. And while Clara convinces the leader of the Maiar, who has a face only an anglerfish could love, in reality, the Odin face being a hologram, while Clara convinces him to leave now that he has what he wants, Schilder, being the brat that she is, convinces the leader of the Maiar that the rest of the village will fight them to the last in order to avenge their fallen. And he accepts the throne gauntlet and gives them a day. Then he'll come back and vaporize all of them. She just had to shoot her mouth off. Smack. Upside the head, not in the face or anything. So, when the doctor learns what Ashildr did, he decides to help the villagers. He tells them to get the duck out of Fodge. But Vikings are stubborn. They refuse to leave. They insist on standing and fighting. And the doctor knows they'll all be killed. Now earlier, when he first saw Ashildr, he had a weird feeling, like a spidey sense thing. Can't figure out why. Explaining that deja vu is actually just remembering from the wrong direction. So he doesn't know what's going on. But he does know this. He gave them advice. They're not going to heed it. So they're doomed. Despite the doctor translating a crying baby, who for some reason speaks in riddles and just wants to look at his mom, or look at her mom, one last time. The Vikings refuse to leave. Eventually, the doctor decides to maybe help them train to fight, which lasts about 5 minutes before the whole village is in chaos. And he basically gives up. He plans on leaving, but then, after hearing Ashildr tell a story about how she would face false Odin, he gets a stroke of brilliance as he realizes the baby's riddle. Turns out the villagers have a stock of eels still alive in barrels. And despite being nowhere near South America, these eels are somehow electric. So he uses the tech in Clara's spacesuit and a couple of anvils and the eels to set up an electromagnet which will take the Maiar helmets off of the shock troopers. Meanwhile, he has Ashildr build something that will help her tell a story. So, the Maiar show up looking for a fight, and they find a party. One of those we're gonna die parties. He sees that there are no weapons among the villagers, but that won't stop him from killing them. So the doctor springs the trap. The electric eels do their thing. The helmets are torn off the shock troopers, which reveal fang-filled fish faces. And then a shielder gets fitted with one of the helmets, so she can basically hack into their visual systems with their minds, or with her mind. And suddenly, a huge sea serpent shows up and drives off most of the Maiar shock troopers. But then it's revealed that it's not actually a sea serpent. It's roughly carved sea serpent shaped ship bow mounted on a pulley system, and it drove the Maiar back, and the doctor got it all on film. Now, as it turns out, reputation is everything to these beings. So if someone were to, say, splice in the Benny Hill theme to footage of them cowering from a puppet, then their reputation would be in shambles if that ever got out. So the doctor insists that the Maiar leave and never return, lest their reputations be destroyed. So it worked. The day saved. Unfortunately, there was a cost. Exposing a shielder to the Maiar technology, it fried her brain, caused her to have a heart attack. She's dead. And so the doctor laments losing. Not war, mind you. He'll lose whatever war he wants, but people, that's another thing. Then he has an epiphany when he looks at his reflection. And once again, he asks the question, who frowned me this face? The question he asked when he and Clara landed in London back in Victorian times with the dinosaur. And then he realizes it, why he looks like the stonecutter from Pompeii. The desperate plea of Donna Noble. Not the whole town, but just save someone. Turns out the reason he has that face is because it's a message. He's holding himself to the mark. He's the doctor, he saves people, and if anyone out there has a problem with it, heck with him. So, doing something really crazy and really dangerous and really stupid, he digs out two medical kits from the Maiar helmet. These little chip things. He puts one on a shielder's head, which absorbs into her body and repairs the damage, bringing her back to life. He then gives the other one to a shielder's father, with instructions to give it to her, to give to whomever she chooses. And that's important because it seems a shielder has lost the ability to die. Barring catastrophic damage, she's effectively immortal. And the doctor wonders whether or not he's made a horrible mistake. And while they leave for parts unknown, back to the Tardis, obviously, Our last view is of Ishildur. At first, happy she's able to stay in her home village. But her happiness turns to terror as time moves on without her. She's unchanged. And as the centuries pass, her look of horror is replaced by one of hardness. She slowly changes, despite not looking like she's changed. The girl who she was really has died, replaced by someone else. What will that mean for the Doctor and Clara in the future? That's a story for next time. Until then, this is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, sometimes you can't save the whole town, but you can always save someone. So try to do that. And sonic specs are not cool.